더 uninvited.
The envelope arrived earlier than expected. Jamie wasn't even home when the mailman delivered it. Her mom had left it on the kitchen table with a yellow sticky note. Your graduation photo came in. Can't wait to see it, love, Mom. Graduation had been only a week ago. The ceremony had been beautiful, if a little boring. The caps were thrown, the speeches were dragged out, and the class had cheered together one last time. Jamie didn't cry like some of her classmates had. She wasn't the sentimental type. But even she had to admit, it felt like the end of something big. She sat at the table, unsealing the thick white envelope with care. The photo was a wide panorama shot of the entire senior class. Everyone was standing on the school's front lawn, dressed in caps and gowns, some waving, some smiling. The quality was high gloss and clear. Jamie ran her fingers across the bottom row, spotting her own face. Grinning, a little awkward, standing between her best friends, Katie and Marcus. She was about to put the photo down when she noticed something strange. In the back row, near the left side, someone was standing slightly apart from the others. A girl. She had long dark hair that covered part of her face. Her gown looked the same as everyone else's, but she wasn't facing the camera. Her head was turned slightly to the side, as though she didn't want to be seen clearly. Jamie squinted, leaning in. The face, what little she could see of it, seemed almost blurred.
Like a smudgy.
Jamie frowned. She knew everyone in the senior class. All 118 students. She had grown up with most of them since elementary school. And she was certain, absolutely certain, there had been no girl like that in their class. Jamie called Katie. "Hey," Katie answered on the second ring. "What's up? Did you get your grad photo yet?" Jamie asked.
예, got it yesterday.
"Why? Take a look. Look in the top left. There's someone there." There was a pause. "Someone. I don't know how to explain it. Just check and tell me if you see her too." A few minutes passed. Then Katie called back, her voice low and uneasy. "I see her." Jamie felt a chill climb up her spine. "Do you know who that is?" she asked. "No. I thought maybe you did." They sat in silence for a moment, both processing it.
It's weird, right?
Katie said finally. "More than weird. Creepy." That night, Jamie couldn't stop staring at the photo. She took a picture of it with her phone and zoomed in. No matter how much she adjusted the brightness or contrast, the girl's face never got any clearer. It stayed smudged, like the lens had caught her in motion, or like the camera itself didn't want to focus on her. The next morning, Jamie brought the photo to school. Even though graduation was over, students still came by to pick up final transcripts or belongings. She found Marcus sitting on the front steps, scrolling through his phone. "Dude, look at this," she said, holding out the print. He peered at it, brow furrowed. "Top left," she prompted. He looked again, then went silent. "Who is that?" he asked. Jamie shook her head.
No one knows.
I asked Katie, she didn't know either.
Marcus gave A로 위세.
That's messed up. She wasn't there that day. I would have noticed. Exactly. They decided to take it to Mr. Rayner, the yearbook advisor and media teacher. His classroom, filled with old posters and camera equipment, smelled faintly of coffee and photo paper. He was known for being easygoing, but also serious about anything media-related. Mr. Rayner squinted at the photo for a long time. "I don't remember seeing this girl," he said slowly. "You're sure she wasn't in the class?" "Yes," Jamie said. "We're all sure." He took the photo from her and placed it under a light magnifier. He mumbled to himself, adjusting the angle. There was no one like this in the original lineup. We checked everyone off. I remember doing the attendance sheet myself. Could it be a glitch? Jamie asked. I don't know, he admitted, but photo glitches don't usually look like this. There's no distortion around her.
Just the face.
Everything else is perfectly clear. He paused. You know what's even weirder? What? She casts a shadow. Look. He pointed at the grass behind the girl.
대여지의 섀도.
Same direction as the others. If she was photoshopped in or a double exposure, you wouldn't get a matching shadow like that. Jamie and Marcus exchanged glances.
시즈리얼. 제이미 whispered.
Or at least she was there. Somehow. Mr. Rayner frowned. Let me look into this. Maybe it's a prank. Someone messing with the print. I'll talk to the photographer. But when he did, things only got stranger. The photographer, Ms. Cates, swore the girl wasn't in any of the original camera reels. In fact, when she showed them the raw files on her laptop, the girl wasn't there. Frame by frame, second by second nothing. In the final processed print, she appeared. But not in the originals. Someone's playing tricks, Ms. Cates said uneasily. But I don't know how. I never touched up anything beyond color correction. No one else had access. When Jamie got home, she stared at the photo again. It now felt heavier, as though the image carried a presence. She taped it to her bedroom wall, determined to keep an eye on it. That night, she had the first dream. She was standing on the school lawn again, but this time it was foggy. Her classmates were there, all unmoving, frozen like mannequins. The girl was closer this time, front row. Jamie tried to speak, but her voice was gone. The girl slowly turned toward her, and Jamie saw her face. It was pale, cracked like porcelain. Her eyes were too dark, like voids punched through the image of a human. And she was smiling. Jamie woke up gasping. She didn't tell anyone about the dream, not yet. But she noticed something new the next morning. The photo on her wall had changed. The girl had moved. She was no longer in the back row. She was a few faces closer now. Near Katie. Jamie tore the photo off the wall and flipped it over.
너싱 어뉴조해. No 마우킹즈. No tears.
But when she turned it back again, the girl was still there. Closer. The next night, the dream returned. Same fog. Same frozen classmates. This time, the girl stood directly behind Marcus, her hand reaching toward his shoulder. Jamie tried to run, but the ground beneath her turned to water, and she sank. She jolted awake, drenched in sweat. She called Katie. I think the photo's changing, she said quietly. Katie didn't laugh. Her voice shook. I didn't want to say anything, but she moved in mine too. A silence passed between them. Do you think she's trying to get closer? Katie asked. Jamie's mouth felt dry. I don't know, but I think we need to find out who she is. They met up the next day and brought all 3 copies of the photo, Jamie's, Katie's, and Marcus's, to the library. Comparing them side by side, it was undeniable. The girl's position changed in each. Closer to the center. Closer to them. I think she's watching us, Marcus muttered. Jamie swallowed hard. Then we need to figure out why. She opened her laptop and began searching online for any stories, any incidents of deaths, missing persons, or past students from their school. And then, buried in a 10-year-old archived article, they found it. Local high school student dies before graduation in unexplained accident. Name withheld by request of family. The article included no photo, no details, just the words, died days before ceremony, and planned to attend but never made it. Jamie stared at the screen. She never got to graduate, she whispered. And now she's in the photo, Katie added. But why? Marcus asked. Why now? Jamie looked down at the image again. The girl's smile, barely visible, seemed deeper now, as if she knew they were watching her. And she was waiting.
더 엑스트라 데스크.
Jamie started noticing the desk on Tuesday. It was second period, in Mr. Harrow's English classroom 3A, the one with the peeling whiteboard and broken heater. Most students were finishing up their final locker cleanouts or skipping altogether. But Jamie had volunteered to help the teachers close out the year. She figured staying on campus might help her keep her mind off the photo, or at least give her a sense of control. She didn't expect to feel watched. As she erased the whiteboard and restacked literature books on the shelf, her eyes kept drifting to the back corner of the room. That's when she noticed the desk. It wasn't there last week. In fact, she could have sworn that corner had always been used to store boxes. But now, standing alone and clean, was a simple wooden desk and chair. Its surface was immaculate, not a scratch, not a stain.
No carved initials.
No forgotten pens.
Just a lonely, perfect desk, lit by a patch of late morning sunlight from the window. What unsettled Jamie wasn't just its sudden appearance, but how deliberately untouched it looked. Like it was waiting for someone. Mr. Harrow walked in with a stack of folders, barely glancing her way.
Hey, Jamie. You're a lifesaver.
Mind labeling these for me? Sure, she said. Then hesitated. Hey, has that desk always been there? He looked up. Which one? She pointed. He squinted. Far corner. She nodded.
에마어 해로 슈러그드.
I think it's been there a while. Don't really use it. Probably just for storage overflow. Why? Jamie opened her mouth to respond but stopped. What was she supposed to say? That a ghost might be using school furniture now? Nothing, she mumbled, picking up a pen. Just looked out of place. Later that day, she messaged Katie. Jamie, have you ever noticed that desk in the back of 3A? Katie, OMG yes. Katie, I saw it yesterday and thought it was weirdly clean.
KT. Like no one's ever touched it. Jamie. Do you remember it ever being there before?
Katie, not once. And you know I had bio in that room last year. That desk was not there. Jamie stared at the screen. A hollow feeling settled in her stomach. Jamie, do you think she's using it? Katie didn't respond right away. When she finally did, her message was only one word. Katie, maybe. By Thursday, word was spreading. Not everyone noticed the desk, but those who did felt something was wrong. One student claimed her backpack had been moved onto the floor when she accidentally placed it on that desk. Another swore she saw a reflection of someone sitting there in the window glass, but when she turned, no one was there. Marcus, ever the skeptic, decided to test it. He brought his old Polaroid camera and snapped a picture during class while Jamie stood near the board. No one else was in the frame. Just Jamie, the chalkboard behind her, and that desk in the corner. They waited a minute for the photo to develop. When it did, Jamie's stomach dropped. There was a girl sitting at the desk. Her face was turned slightly to the side, mostly obscured by hair. But her posture, the way her hands rested on the dikit, was calm. Intentional. Like she belonged there. She's back, Jamie whispered. Marcus stared at the image. I swear I didn't see anyone there. Jamie took the Polaroid and held it under the light. The girl's form was faint but undeniable. Unlike the graduation photo, there was no crowd, no distractions. Just her. Alone. Watching. They brought the photo to Katie, who paled when she saw it. "That's the same girl," she said. "From the graduation photo." Jamie nodded.
She's getting bolder.
They decided to test it again. This time, Jamie walked over and sat directly at the desk. It felt cold. Not just in temperature, emotionally cold, like stepping into a space that rejected you. She resisted the urge to shiver. Marcus took another photo. As it developed, Jamie felt her heart thudding hard in her chest. The photo showed Jamie sitting at the desk, but she wasn't alone. Behind her, just barely visible, was the blurry outline of the girl. Standing.
Leaning forward.
Her head inches from Jamie's. The same two dark eyes. The same not quite smile. Jamie nearly dropped the photo. "Okay," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "We need answers. Real ones." They started with the school archives. The library had a dusty storage room that housed yearbooks and student files going back decades. Ms. Parra, the librarian, was skeptical but allowed them access when Jamie explained they were looking into a forgotten student for a graduation tribute. They pulled yearbooks from the last 15 years. One by one, they flipped through the senior class photos. 10 years ago, they found her. Her name was listed as Melina Lena Moore, class of 2015. She had the same hair, same faint smile, only in this photo, her eyes were visible. Large, soft, and sad. Jamie read the caption, "Gone too soon. Always remembered." The dedication page at the back listed her under "In Memoriam." No details. No explanation. But it confirmed their suspicion. "She was real," Marcus said. "She went here. And she died before graduation," Jamie added. "She was supposed to be in her class photo. She never made it." Katie stared at the picture. "And now she's showing up in ours. As if she's reclaiming it." They returned to Mr. Rayner. He didn't seem surprised to hear the name. "I remember her," he said quietly. "She was a quiet girl. Brilliant writer. Had plans for college. One day she just stopped coming. We heard later she passed away. The school didn't make an announcement. It was all very hush-hush. Do you know how she died?" Jamie asked.
에마어 레이너 헤저테이티드.
"No one told us for sure. Rumors said she had depression, that she took her own life. But I never saw any signs." He leaned back in his chair. "It always bothered me. She deserved to be remembered. Maybe that's why she's showing up now." Jamie felt a weight settle in her chest. Not fear. Sadness. She had nowhere to sit at graduation, she said quietly. So she found a desk. The next day, Jamie walked into room 3A again. Alone. She stood beside the desk. It looked the same, untouched, waiting. She took a deep breath and reached into her backpack, pulling out a small printed photo. It was Lena's yearbook portrait. Jamie placed it gently on the desk. "You belong here," she said softly. For a moment, nothing happened. The room was silent. Then, the air shifted. The temperature dropped slightly, not icy, just enough to raise goosebumps. The sunlight in the window dimmed, clouded for a second. The photo trembled. Not much. Just a little. Enough to make Jamie step back. When she blinked, the Polaroid photo Marcus had taken, the one with the girl standing behind her, slipped out of her notebook. It fluttered to the ground, landing face up. The girl was gone. The desk, in the photo, was empty. Jamie stared. She picked it up, breath caught in her throat. The desk in the picture, the one she had just sat at, was completely vacant. No ghostly figure.
No sabeu.
Nothing. She turned back toward the real desk. The yearbook photo of Lena was still there. Jamie smiled. For the first time, the room felt warm. That night, her dreams changed. She stood again on the school lawn. But this time, there was no fog.
No frozen classmates.
And Lena wasn't lurking in the background. Instead, she stood beside Jamie.
폴리 비접해.
Her eyes were soft and her smile was peaceful. She reached for Jamie's hand but didn't grab it. Just placed her palm gently nearby. A gesture of gratitude. Then she turned and walked away, fading into the sunlight. Jamie woke up with a tear on her cheek. She looked at the photo on her wall again. Lena was gone. No smudge.
No blur.
Just empty space.
A name no one remembers.
The library was colder than usual. Jamie stood at the back of the archive room, the air thick with dust and forgotten paper. Boxes labeled with years and teacher names were stacked high on rusted shelves. The scent of mildew and yellowing ink lingered like a memory that refused to be erased. She had asked Ms. Parra if there were any old attendance books, something physical, something handwritten before the school moved fully digital. The librarian had paused, eyes narrowing. There might be, she'd said, but they'd be from over a decade ago. That's exactly what I'm hoping, Jamie replied. Now, here she was, alone in the dim corner of the archive, a flashlight in one hand and a stack of spiral-bound books in the other. Most were from the mid-2000s. She worked backward, year by year, until she found one labeled 2,014,201,512th grade attendance. Her heart pounded harder as she flipped through the pages. The names were handwritten in neat cursive. Columns for each day of the school year marked whether students were present, late, or absent. She skimmed the first few pages' last names starting with A, B, until her eyes locked on something strange. More, Lena. Her name was there. Jamie ran her finger across the row. Lena had perfect attendance until the second week of May. After that, every single box was marked absent. Graduation had been in early June. Jamie leaned closer. The final 3 weeks of the school year were all blank for Lena.
No 마우킹즈.
No initials.
As if, at some point, the teachers had simply stopped checking her name. She flipped to the back of the book, where a few notes were scribbled by the homeroom teacher. More. Lena withdrawn mid-May. No records of transfer. Notified office but no follow-up. Jamie stared at it, heart thudding. No records of transfer. That meant Lena hadn't gone to another school. And she clearly hadn't graduated. Then Jamie noticed something odd. Someone had circled Lena's name lightly, in pencil. The circle was faint, but it had been drawn with care. No other names had that mark. Jamie flipped the book shut, cradling it like it might vanish if she wasn't careful. She had proof now. Lena was real. Lena was supposed to graduate. But she'd been erased, forgotten by the system, overlooked by staff, and ignored by history. Back at home, Jamie opened the graduation photo again. The version on her phone still showed Lena, faded and silent, watching from the back row. "You're not invisible," Jamie whispered. "I see you." But as she stared at the photo, a question bubbled upon that sent a chill racing through her. If Lena's name was in the attendance book, and her face was in the photo, why didn't anyone else remember her? The next day, Jamie brought the attendance book to Marcus and Katie. They sat at their usual booth at the coffee dock, tucked away from the crowd. The hum of the espresso machine was distant background noise as Jamie laid the book open on the table. "There," she said, pointing.
모어, 리너.
Marcus squinted. That's her. Same last name as the article we found. Same year. And her attendance drops off in May right before graduation. Katie ran her finger across the page, lips pressed tight. She was here the whole year, she murmured. Up until she wasn't.
마우커스 린드백.
But if her name was on the books, why didn't any of the teachers remember her? Mr. Rayner didn't seem sure. Mr. Harrow definitely didn't. Jamie nodded. I've been thinking about that too. And I think it's not just that they forgot. It's like their memories were wiped. Katie's eyes widened. You think something erased her? Jamie looked down at the circled name again. Or someone. Later that afternoon, Jamie returned to school alone. There was one more thing she had to see. She made her way to the main office and peeked around the corner. Ms. Thomas, the front desk secretary, had just stepped out to make a call. The records cabinet was unlocked. Jamie slid behind the counter quickly and pulled open the drawer marked 20142015 Seniors. Dozens of manila folders, alphabetized, were packed inside. She flipped through them quickly. Mendoza, Liam Meyer, Claire Miller, Sean Nothing under Moore. She checked again.
No more, Lina.
No student folder.
노 트랜스크리프트.
No proof.
Jamie's hands were shaking. The school had erased her. She stepped back, closed the drawer softly, and turned only to jump. A girl was standing across the office. Jamie's breath caught. It was Lina. She looked exactly as she had in the photo's long dark hair, pale skin, eyes wide and empty. But this time, she wasn't blurred. She was perfectly clear. And she was looking right at Jamie. Then she opened her mouth. But no sound came out. Her lips moved again, more frantic this time, but still silence. Jamie stood frozen. What are you trying to say? Lina lifted her hand. Pointed. Not at Jamie but past her. Jamie turned slowly. On the wall above the record cabinet was a dusty corkboard covered in old flyers and forgotten notices. One of them, hanging askew, caught her eye. It was a senior class honor roll list. The paper had yellowed. Names typed neatly in rows.
제이미 스캔드 이트.
There. At the very bottom. More, Lina Creative Writing Honors. Still remembered. Barely. Hanging on by a single staple. Jamie turned back but Lina was gone. That night, Jamie had another dream. She was in the school hallway. It was dark, lit only by the red exit signs and flickering overhead lights. Her footsteps echoed too loudly. The hallway seemed longer than it should have been, stretching endlessly. She passed rows of lockers, then desks, then yearbooks scattered across the floor. At the far end of the hall stood a door, old, wooden, and carved with initials. As she reached for the knob, a voice whispered behind her, "Don't forget me." She turned. Lina was there crying. Her eyes weren't empty anymore. They were full of something deeper. Pain. Loneliness.
A quiet desperation.
I tried, she whispered, but they wouldn't see me. Not even when I screamed. Jamie woke up with tears in her eyes. She knew what she had to do. At school the next day, she marched into the yearbook committee's storage closet. The club had long since ended for the year, but Jamie still had the key from helping clean up. She found the bin labeled Unused Prints and Layouts, and flipped through stacks of old mock-ups. She found the 2015 layout, opened to the senior page. Her hands trembled. There was a blank spot, a small gap in the final photo arrangement. Just enough room for one face that was never added. She grabbed a blank portrait insert, pulled out Lena's yearbook photo from the archives, and carefully slid it into place. Taped it down. Now, she was part of the class again. Jamie stared at the page, heart thudding with something new. Not fear. Justice. That evening, Jamie returned to her room and pulled out the graduation photo one last time. She gasped. Lena was gone. The girl in the photo, the mysterious, smudged figure in the back, had vanished completely.
노 페이디드 새도. 노다억 불러.
Just a gap in the crowd, as if no one had ever stood there. But Jamie wasn't afraid. Not anymore. She reached for the Polaroid that Marcus had taken, the one with Lena standing behind her at the desk. Gone. Just Jamie. Alone. The next day, Jamie returned the attendance book to Ms. Parra. You were right, the librarian said gently. Sometimes the records don't tell the whole story. Jamie smiled faintly. I think now they will. She walked down the hallway one last time before leaving for summer break. The school felt lighter somehow. Brighter. The air wasn't heavy anymore. And when she passed room 3A, the back corner was empty. The desk was gone. That night, just before bed, Jamie got a message from an unknown number. No text. Just a photo. It was her graduation photo. But this version was different. In the very center, front row, between Jamie and Katie stood Lena. Smiling. Whole. Remembered. The counselor's secret. Jamie sat outside the counselor's office, legs bouncing nervously. The hallway was unusually quiet, most students gone for summer break, leaving only the occasional echo of shoes against tile. She had made an appointment under the pretense of discussing her college recommendation letter, but that wasn't what she came for. Her mind replayed the moment Lena vanished from the photo. That eerie stillness afterward. The unknown number texting her with a photo that shouldn't exist. It all pointed back to one question. Why was Lena erased from everyone's memory in the first place? Someone had to know more. And Jamie had a hunch that person was Mr. Callahan, the school counselor.
The door creaked open.
Mr. Callahan, a tall man with graying hair and round glasses, peeked out with a smile. Jamie.
Come in.
His office was small but neatly arranged. A plant sat in the corner next to a half-empty fish tank. On the wall behind his desk hung photos of past graduating classes and inspirational quotes. Jamie's eyes lingered on the oldest class photo, the class of 2015. Her heart jumped when she saw it. Lena wasn't in it. Callahan gestured to the seat in front of him. So you wanted to talk about college? Jamie hesitated, then shook her head. That's not why I'm here. He raised an eyebrow. Nah. I wanted to ask you about a student. A girl who was supposed to graduate in 2015. Lena Moore. The change in Mr. Callahan's expression was instant. The warmth drained from his face, replaced by a quiet stillness. He looked down at his desk, as if suddenly distracted by something invisible. Jamie waited, heart pounding. Finally, he spoke, voice lower. Where did you hear that name? She was in the attendance books. I found her picture in the yearbook archives. She was on the honor roll. She died before graduation, didn't she? Callahan didn't answer. He reached over and closed the folder on his desk.
제이미 프레스트온.
But why was she erased? No student file. No photo. Even the teachers barely remember her. Why? Callahan looked at her sharply. Because we made a decision. For the good of the school. Jamie stared. You chose to forget her? He sighed and leaned back in his chair. You don't understand what happened that year. Then explain it to me, Jamie said. Please. Callahan was quiet for a long time. Then he got up, walked over to the filing cabinet, and pulled out a thin, locked folder. The key was on a chain around his neck. He opened it and removed a single Documenta photocopy of a handwritten report. He laid it gently on the desk between them.
제이미 린드 포워드.
The heading read, Incident Report May 14, 2015.
스튜어던트, 모어, 리너.
She scanned the page quickly. Her hands trembled. Student was found unresponsive in the creative writing room after hours. Preliminary investigation ruled no foul play. Cause of death, undetermined. Mental health records suggest history of depression, though no note was found. Incident occurred 3 days after the student was informed she would not be walking at graduation due to clerical error in course credits. Jamie's throat tightened. She was told she couldn't graduate, she whispered.
켈러앤 나디드 슬롤리.
There was a miscalculation. Her final English credit hadn't processed correctly. She thought it was a mistake, but by the time we found the error it was too late. Jamie's stomach turned. She thought she failed? She was devastated, Callahan said softly. She came to my office crying that morning, begged me to fix it. I tried. I called the board, I asked for override, but policies were strict. She missed the cutoff. He exhaled. The next day she was gone. Jamie sat in stunned silence. Callahan continued. Her parents didn't want publicity. They were private people. And honestly, we were afraid. The administration thought it would bring scrutiny, lawsuits. So the principal at the time decided to quietly remove her from records. Her family agreed, under the condition that we wouldn't mention her in any official capacity again. They erased her to protect themselves, Jamie said bitterly. Callahan met her eyes. We didn't know it would go this far. Some teachers remembered, some didn't. But over time it's like the memory faded. Like something stronger didn't want us to remember.
제이미즈 브레스 코트.
You think something else was at work? I don't know, Callahan admitted. But I've worked here a long time. I've seen things I can't explain. And sometimes, when a person dies full of grief, of injustice, they leave a mark. Jamie looked down at the report again. Her hands were cold. She didn't want revenge, she whispered. She just wanted to be remembered. She wanted to graduate. Callahan gave a small nod. She was a good student. Kind. Quiet. But the system failed her. And in doing so, so did we. Is that why she was in our graduation photo? Jamie asked.
켈러앤즈 아이즈 네로드.
She was in the photo? Jamie pulled out her phone and showed him the version she'd saved before Lena vanished. He stared for a long time, lips pressed tight. She came back, he said. Jamie nodded. She moved in every version of the photo, closer to us. She showed up at a desk that wasn't there before. She led us to her name in the attendance records. She wanted us to see her. And now, he asked, she's gone. After we put her name back. After we remembered. Callahan leaned back, rubbing his temples.
I suppose that all she ever wanted.
There was a long silence between them. Then Jamie asked quietly, "Why didn't you tell anyone?" Callahan looked older than before. Worn. Because we were told not to. And maybe I was afraid. But if what you're saying is true, maybe silence was the real curse.
제이미 스토드 슬롤리. She's not angry anymore.
I think she's finally at peace. Callahan gave a sad smile. Then maybe we all can be. As she turned to leave, he called after her. Jamie. She looked back. Be careful, he said softly.
The dead don't always stay quiet.
Even the ones who mean well. Jamie nodded, then stepped into the hallway. As she walked past the front office, she paused to glance at the corkboard one more time. The creative writing honors sheet was gone. In its place was a new flyer. In loving memory, Lena Moore. 19972015.
A student, A writer, A soul never forgotten.
Reinstated to the class of 2015 with full honors. Jamie stared at it, her eyes welling up. Then, beneath the flyer, a single white rose sat in a glass vase. No card.
No signature.
But Jamie knew who had left it. That night, Jamie had one final dream. She was back on the school lawn, dressed in her cap and gown. But this time, everyone was smiling.
The light was golden.
There was no fog. The class stood still for the photo. And beside Jamie, shoulder to shoulder, stood Lena. They looked at each other. No words. Just a look of peace. Then the camera clicked.
Flash.
Everything faded to white. Jamie awoke with a sense of calm. She went to her closet, pulled out her graduation photo again. This time, there was no girl in the background. But something had changed. On the bottom, scrawled in delicate handwriting that hadn't been there before, was a single line. Thank you for seeing me. Yearbook of the Dead. The storage closet at the back of the library smelled like ink, old glue, and time itself. Jamie had never been this deep into the school archives before. She thought she'd already found everything worth finding: attendance books, staff notes, Lena's faded photo taped in the back of a forgotten file. But now, armed with the counselor's confession and a deeper understanding of what had been done, she was searching for something different. She wanted proof Lena had once been visible to everyone. A yearbook. A page. A face frozen in ink. She pulled on a pair of thin gloves, just like Ms. Parra had taught her, and began sifting through the labeled boxes. Class of 20120162015200152014. She paused. The 2015 box was taped shut tighter than the others. Old brown packing tape, yellowed and brittle, wrapped around its top like a sealed tomb.
Jamie peeled it back slowly. Careful not to tear the cardboard.
Inside were several copies of the yearbook, all stacked neatly, their black covers embossed with gold lettering. Eastbridge High Class of 2015. The image of the school's clock tower gleamed faintly under the archive room's single flickering bulb. Jamie lifted one copy from the stack and gently opened the cover. She flipped past the dedications, the faculty portraits, the senior quotes until she reached the main event. The senior class photo pages. Row by row, name by name, she scanned the faces. Lena was nowhere to be found.
Jamie flipped again.
Then again. No more.
No Lena. No placeholder.
Not even a gap where a photo might have been. It was like she had never existed. Frustrated, Jamie opened a second copy. Nothing. She opened a third. Still nothing. And then, just as her fingers grew tired from flipping pages, something fell out from the back of the third book, a folded slip of paper, tucked between the back cover and the final page. She unfolded it slowly. The paper was a bit stiff, the edges curled. On it was a single sticky note. First print run. Before the retraction.
Boxed for destruction.
Jamie's heartbeat kicked up. She turned back to the book. Pressed into the back cover was a second set of senior portraits, no layout, just unformatted pages, printed and glued in manually. A dozen faces arranged in a grid, all unfamiliar. And their bottom row, center was Lena. Her picture was clearer than anything Jamie had seen so far. Her eyes were calm, her expression serene. Beneath her name, more, Lena Creative Writing Honors.
제이미즈 브레스 코트.
But under that, in small italicized type, was something even stranger. In memoriam. Lena passed away before final exams. She is honored here as a member of the class of 2015. It wasn't just a yearbook photo. It was a memorial. And yet this version had been pulled. Hidden. Buried in the back of an archive copy meant to be shredded. Jamie flipped the book shut and stared at the gold lettering on the front cover again. They had tried to honor her once. Then someone decided against it. She tucked the hidden page copy under her arm and returned to the library. Ms. Parra glanced up as Jamie entered, eyes narrowing at the book in her arms. "That's from the restricted bin," she said quietly. Jamie nodded. "I think it's time someone saw it." The librarian tilted her head. "You found her?" Jamie placed the book on the desk and opened to the altered section. Lena's photo stared up from the page, calm and unblinking. Ms. Parra was silent for a long time. Then she gave a slow, sad nod. "I remember now," she whispered. "I shelved this version myself. They told us to pull them and replace them with a reprint. But this copy was different. I couldn't throw it away." Jamie sat down across from her. "Why did they remove her?" "I don't know," she admitted. "But they said the family changed their mind. That they didn't want her included in anything. Said it was for privacy." Jamie frowned. "But that's not true. Mr. Callahan said it was the school's decision." Ms. Parra's face clouded. "Then someone lied," she said. Jamie stared at Lena's portrait again. "They erased her even in death. She tried to reach out through the photo, through the desk, through the dreams. She just wanted to be seen. And remembered. And now?" The librarian asked softly. "I think she knows she's not alone anymore." Ms. Parra gently closed the yearbook. "What will you do with it?" "I want it scanned. Archived. Officially. I want there to be a version where she exists. Publicly." The librarian nodded. "We can do that." Later that night, Jamie sat at her desk, the scanned copy of the page loaded on her laptop screen. She zoomed in on Lena's eyes. There was a story there, one that had been cut short. A story that screamed in silence. She opened her journal and began to write. Not a story. A eulogy. Her name was Lena Moore. She was a student, a writer, a person. She loved poetry and quiet places. She felt things deeply, too deeply. She was failed by the system, and forgotten by those who should have held on. But she is not forgotten now.
Issue, Lena. I remember.
She hit print. The next day, she brought the page to the school's old trophy cabinet, long and used, and slipped it under the glass. Next to old plaques, medals, and dusty ribbons, it stood out starkly. A page with a face. A voice. She returned after class to find something odd. A small slip of paper had been tucked beside it. In looping handwriting were 4 words. "I was here too."
제이미즈 브레스 코트.
She looked around. No one in sight. But something inside her knew. Lena had seen it. And Lena had answered. That night, Jamie had the most vivid dream yet. She was walking down the school hallway again. But it wasn't shadowy or haunted. It was bathed in golden sunlight pouring through windows. Everything was quiet. Peaceful. Lena stood at the end of the hallway. Not sad. Not afraid. She wore a white dress this time, no longer bound in the black graduation gown. Her hair was tied back loosely, and her face glowed with something Jamie hadn't seen before.
Peace.
Jamie approached her, but before she could speak, Lena handed her something. A book. Its cover was blank. Jamie opened it. Inside were pages filled with words handwritten, elegant, emotional. Poems. Stories. Thoughts. Lena's writing. Jamie turned to the first page. A title was scrawled in blue ink. The girl in the graduation photo wasn't invited. Jamie looked up, tears stinging her eyes. You wrote it? She asked. Lena smiled. Just once. Then turned and walked into the light. Jamie woke up clutching her own notebook, startled to find it open beside her. She glanced at the page. There, scrawled in her own handwriting but written during her sleep, was the same title. The girl in the graduation photo wasn't invited. Jamie whispered into the silence of her room.
I'll tell you a story.
I promise.
Eastpurge in the Horei.
The halls of Eastbridge High had a very specific kind of silence at night. It wasn't peaceful. It was a silence that listened. Jamie found herself walking those halls more often now, long after the other students had left. She told herself it was for research, or to meet with Ms. Parra about archiving Lena's yearbook page. But the truth was simpler. She felt drawn back. Something was unfinished. It began with the whispers. At first, they were faint, like wind through a cracked window or the rustle of distant paper. But over the next few nights, they grew more insistent. Words formed. You saw me. Then again, the next night. Now remember me. Jamie froze in the hallway outside the library, heart thudding in her chest. The words echoed like they had come from all directions and nowhere at once. She spun around. Empty hallway.
라커즈. 플로레선트 라이츠 버징 오버헤드.
No one. But the voice was familiar. Lena's. It wasn't angry.
저스트 프레전트.
Persistent. That night, Jamie stayed up reading every creative writing piece Lena had submitted during her final year. Ms. Parra had dug them out of a forgotten USB archive. There were poems about isolation, stories about invisible girls walking between worlds, notes in the margins with lines like, "If I disappear, will anyone notice? Sometimes I feel like a shadow learning how to pretend." Jamie knew now that Lena hadn't just wanted recognition. She needed to be understood. And the whispers weren't fading. They were growing clearer. The next evening, Jamie convinced Marcus and Katie to stay late with her. They met in the main hallway, flashlights in hand, the building dimly lit by motion-sensitive emergency lights. It was well past 9 p.m. "This is ridiculous," Marcus whispered, glancing behind them. "We're breaking at least 3 rules." Katie rolled her eyes. "Don't pretend you're not into it." Jamie led them past the library and into the east wing where Lena used to have her creative writing class. "We listen," she told them. "That's it."
No pre-booking. No stupid ghost apps.
저스트 리선.
They walked slowly.
신어 위스퍼.
"You saw me." Katie gasped. "Now remember me." Marcus's flashlight flickered. He shook it. "Did you hear that?" All 3 froze. The voice came again. Closer. Read what I left." Jamie turned. "What did she say?" "She left something," Katie whispered. "But where?"
제이미 누더 클래스룸.
2E. The door was always locked after hours, but she'd seen the janitors leave a window cracked some nights to air it out. They raced down the corridor, Jamie's heart pounding with every step. Room 2E was dark, but the window was open. They climbed in carefully. The room smelled faintly of dry erase markers and dust. Posters on the wall featured quotes from Poe and Dickinson. Jamie remembered sitting here once as a freshman, before the class was moved to another room. She walked toward the teacher's desk.
The whisper came again.
Bottom drawer. Behind the tape. Jamie yanked the drawer open.
펜슬지.
Stickers. A roll of masking tape. She reached behind it and her fingers hit something soft.
A 노트북.
She pulled it free. It was slim, covered in faded denim fabric. The pages were brittle at the edges. A tiny ribbon bookmark hung from its spine. Jamie opened it gently. Inside were handwritten entries. Lena's journal. They sat cross-legged on the floor as Jamie read aloud by flashlight. April 27th. Today I walked into the cafeteria and nobody looked at me. It's like I don't exist. Even Miss Carter marked me absent. I was sitting right there. I raised my hand. She didn't even blink. April 30th. Something is wrong. I know I'm real. I can see my reflection.
I have a heartbeat.
But everyone's looking through me. I'm scared I'm slipping. May 3rd. If I'm going to disappear, I want someone to know it happened. Katie's hand flew to her mouth. She knew it was happening before she died, Jamie whispered. She was vanishing from people's memories. And no one believed her. They flipped to the final page. May 12th. The counselor said it's a glitch. That I'll still graduate. But he didn't look me in the eye. I think they're hiding something. I think I'm supposed to fade. Maybe that's the punishment for not being perfect here. If anyone finds this, please remember me. Please remember I was real. A long silence filled the room. Then, a click. The overhead lights flickered on. But none of them had moved. The projector on the desk came to life with a low whir, casting a faint glow across the whiteboard. Then images. Slides began to autoplay on the screen. Not from a computer. Just showing. The first was a picture of Lena, sitting on the edge of the school fountain, laughing. Then another, of her in a group with friends. Then one of her reading a poem aloud. Jamie gasped. She left memories behind. Actual photos. More appeared. Moments that had never made it into yearbooks or Instagram posts. They weren't posed, they were real. Honest. Untouched. She existed, Jamie whispered. She lived here. The projector whirred again. The final slide was text. 3 words. One more story. Back at home, Jamie couldn't sleep. She stared at the journal, fingers running over the soft cover. Her mind buzzed with everything Lena had shown her. But she knew it wasn't finished. Lena had said, one more story. So Jamie opened her laptop and began to write. She titled the file, The Forgotten Girl. It wasn't just about ghosts or photos. It was about systems that failed people. About being ignored until you vanished. About shouting into silence and hoping someone would answer. It took her all night. When she finished, the clock on her desk read 4:44 a.m. She hit save. Then she heard it again.
A whisper.
Soft. Almost a breath. Thank you. Jamie submitted the story to the Eastbridge Gazette's digital archive the next day. Ms. Parra featured it on the library homepage. Within hours, it started gaining attention. Teachers messaged her. Students commented. Even alumni wrote in. People remembered Lena. Some shared that they had vague memories of her half-forgotten smiles in the hallway, a girl who used to sit quietly by the windows. One girl said Lena had helped her find her lost notebook once, but she'd never known her name. She always seemed like she wanted to say something, someone wrote. But I never stopped to ask. Now they knew. Jamie checked the yearbook archive again that night. Lena's page once missing was now officially scanned, indexed, and tagged. Her story had become part of the school's permanent record. The next time Jamie walked through the hallway alone, there were no whispers. Just silence. But this time, it felt peaceful. As she passed the trophy case, something made her pause. The rose she'd seen earlier had wilted. A new one had taken its place. Fresh. White. Beside it, tucked neatly into the display, was a single typed note. To the one who listened. I remember you too. Jamie felt her chest tighten. She reached into her bag, pulled out a pen, and scribbled a reply on the corner of an old quiz paper. We both remember now. She placed it beside the rose and walked away. That night, she didn't dream of dark halls or frozen classmates. She dreamed of a graduation ceremony. The sun was shining.
버즈즈 오버헤드.
The grass was green, and everyone wore white gowns. As the names were read, she heard her own. Then Lena's. The crowd clapped. No one hesitated. No one questioned. Lena stood beside her, smiling with eyes that sparkled in the light. She turned, whispered, "Thank you," and stepped forward. Jamie woke up with tears on her pillow and peace in her chest. The whispers had stopped. But the memory remained.
더 라이브러리 파일.
It was nearly midnight when Jamie crept back into the school. Her heart pounded against her ribs like it wanted out. But she kept going, hands clutching the key card she'd borrowed from Ms. Parra's desk earlier that afternoon.
She'd return it.
Eventually. Right now, she had something else to do. Because there was one place she hadn't looked.
더 리스트릭티드 라이브러리 아카이브즈.
Ms. Parra had once told her it was where old microfilms, banned books, sealed faculty files, and media from the school's early decades were kept. Most students didn't even know the room existed. But Jamie had seen it once through a crack in the back wall behind the faculty storage. She reached the library doors, slipped inside, and navigated through the dark using the tiny beam of her penlight. Every creak of the wood under her feet felt like thunder. The main archive cage was secured with a keypad. Her fingers shook as she entered the code she'd seen written on a sticky note last week. 1945, the founding year of Eastbridge High. Click. The door opened. The room was cool.
에어러스.
A sharp scent of paper and something old and forgotten hung in the air.
셀브즈 룸드 인 더 다업.
Dust motes danced in the flashlight's beam. Jamie stepped forward. Boxes were stacked from floor to ceiling. Labeled by year. 2003. 2010.
2015.
She froze. The 2015 box sat half-buried behind a stack of old faculty meeting tapes. She yanked it free. Inside were folders, yearbook proofs, counselor records, press cuttings. Then she found it.
에이신 엔벌로프 레이벨드 인 레드잉.
Media hold do not distribute. Her breath caught. She opened it slowly. Inside was a folded newspaper clipping. The paper was yellowed but intact, its headline printed in bold black ink. Local teen dies mysteriously before graduation. May 15, 2015, Eastbridge, Illinois. A 17-year-old student at Eastbridge High School was found dead in a classroom late Thursday evening. Officials have not released the name of the student but confirmed she was a senior and due to graduate in less than 3 weeks. Sources say the girl was discovered by a janitor around 9:30 p.m. in room 2E, the school's creative writing classroom. Cause of death remains under investigation, but no foul play is suspected. School officials decline to comment, citing privacy concerns and the family's request for discretion. Jamie's hands trembled as she stared at the clipping. There it was. Proof. Lena had been real. Her death had been reported. Publicly. Before everything was pulled and buried. She flipped the clipping over. There was more. A photo had been partially torn, but she could make out part of Lena's face.
소프트, 블러드.
A girl not quite captured in focus. Below it was a short paragraph. Grief counselors will be made available to Eastbridge students. In response to the incident, the school's administration has postponed senior week events pending internal review. Jamie blinked. Postponed senior week? No one had ever mentioned that. Her older brother graduated that year. He'd never said a word. She pulled out her phone and called him. Dylan.
제이미.
It's late. What's going on? You graduated in 2015, right? Yeah, why? Do you remember senior week being cancelled? There was a pause on the other end.
넘버.
That's weird. Now that you say it, I do remember something got postponed. I thought it was a fire drill or something. You don't remember anyone dying? Another pause. No. Wait. There was something. A rumor. People said a girl in the art program, maybe creative writing, that she just stopped coming one day. But nobody would talk about it. We thought she transferred. Or dropped out. Jamie swallowed. Do you remember her name?
No, sorry.
That year was a blur. Why? Jamie looked at the photo again. No reason, she said softly. Just trying to understand something. She hung up and looked around the archive again. There were other files. One caught her eye labeled, Incident Follow-Up. Inside was a short memo from the principal dated May 17, 2015. Effective immediately, all media related to the deceased student shall be removed from public display. Yearbooks are to be edited prior to distribution. Teachers will be instructed not to discuss the incident further. Student support will be handled privately. Counselor Callahan will retain all psychological files. Below that, a signature. Principal Helen Carver.
제이미즈 블러드 보일드.
They hadn't just erased Lena, they had instructed others to forget. Made it policy. Cleaned the history like it was a messy whiteboard. She stuffed the clipping and memo into her bag and stood. As she turned to leave, she felt it. Cold. Not just the natural chill of old paper and locked rooms, but a deeper cold. The kind that touched bone. She turned her flashlight around slowly. In the corner, a shadow moved. Jamie froze. Lena. The shape didn't speak. It only lingered tall, still, feminine, watching. Jamie took a step forward. I saw the article, she whispered. I know what they did to you. The figure didn't move. Jamie pulled the clipping from her bag and held it up. You mattered. Even when they said you didn't. Even when they buried your name, your photo, your story. This proves you were here. That what happened to you was real.
더 플래시라이트 플리커드 원스.
Then again. And the shadow stepped forward, briefly illuminated. It was Lena. Her eyes weren't empty this time. They were glassy with emotion. Her face didn't look ghostly, it looked human. Hurt. Then, slowly, she nodded. Her mouth moved. Jamie strained to hear. Keep going.
댄시 베니시트. 제이미 스프린티드 아웃 오브 더 아어카이브즈.
Back home, She scanned the newspaper clipping and uploaded it to the story archive she'd created online. Then she attached the school memo. She titled the entry, "Suppressed Grief. The Real Story of Lena Moore." She waited. 4 minutes. Then hours. By morning, the post had gone viral. Hundreds of shares. Dozens of comments. Students from the class of 2015 chimed in. Some remembered. Some still didn't. But one thing was clear. The silence had ended. Someone else uploaded their own copy of the article from the local library's newspaper reel. Others posted screenshots from old social media accounts' blurry photos with Lena in the background. Smiling. Laughing. Present. Memory was stitching itself back together.
피스 바이 피스.
That day, Jamie returned the key to Ms. Parra with a quiet apology. The librarian said nothing, just smiled and handed Jamie a package. "I think this is yours now," she said. Jamie opened it. Inside was a restored, full version of the 2015 yearbook, first print run with Lena's page intact. The digital version had been reinstated, and this was the hard copy to match it. Jamie ran her fingers across Lena's photo. "I'm not done," she said aloud. "There's more to tell." And she knew what came next. Because the photo didn't just show Lena. It showed another student beside her, face half hidden, never tagged. A boy who looked just as out of place. Another ghost? Another story? Jamie wasn't sure. But she'd find out. The locked room. The 3rd floor of Eastbridge High always felt colder than the rest of the building. Most students avoided it. Even during class hours, the upper hallway stayed strangely quiet, too quiet. Fewer teachers had offices up there.
노 밴딩 머신즈.
No windows facing the courtyard. And then, of course, there was room 309. It had been sealed for years. Jamie had walked past it a dozen times, maybe more, without really noticing. But now, with Lena's photo restored, her story halfway told, and the ghost girl's presence lingering in every step Jamie took, she noticed everything. And this door? It wasn't just sealed. It was marked. That morning, as the rest of the school buzzed with end-of-term prep, Jamie climbed the stairwell with her camera and notebook in hand. Marcus trailed behind her, sipping from a can of Mountain Dew and trying his best not to look nervous. "Are we actually doing this?" he asked. "We're already up here," Jamie said. "Might as well look." Katie had bowed out after the previous night's encounter. Said she needed a break. Jamie didn't blame her. But she couldn't stop now. Not after what she saw in the yearbook. Because there had been a boy next to Lena in that hidden spread.
Someone unnamed.
Someone not in any official records. And when Jamie looked closer, his arm had been partially translucent. Faded. Like Lena had been, before she fully returned. And that meant there might be another ghost. Or another victim. Room 309 stood at the far end of the hallway. It was blocked off by a metal chain and a maintenance-only sign. The glass window on the door had been spray-painted black from the inside. The knob was rusted, and the hinges looked fused from age. But it wasn't that which made Jamie pause. It was the scratched words carved faintly into the wood near the frame. They weren't there before. She was sure of it. But now, the letters were unmistakable. Lena M. Etched deeply. Uneven. Rushed. Jamie touched the name. The wood was ice cold. Marcus shifted behind her. "Did you see that?" "What?" He pointed. The doorknob just moved. Jamie stared, then slowly reached out and turned it. To her shock, it unlocked. A click echoed down the hallway, too loud for such a small sound. Jamie pushed the door open. The room smelled like dust, metal, and something older.
something forgotten.
Desks were still in place, though half were covered in drop cloths. The chalkboard had writing on it frozen in time. Midterm essay March 14th, 15. Faint drawings remained on the walls. Diagrams of story arcs, character webs, sentence structure posters. But it wasn't just a classroom. It felt like a preserved scene. Like someone had tried to forget, but never actually cleaned up. At the back of the room sat a single desk. It faced away from the others, like it had been dragged to the corner and abandoned. On its surface, in thick dust, someone had written,
Don't forget me again.
Jamie stepped forward.
허 브레스 헝인더예요.
She turned to Marcus. This is where it happened. What happened? He asked quietly. This is where Lena died. Marcus's face paled. I thought that was room 2E. That's what the report said, Jamie replied. But look at this place. Nothing's been touched. There's no dust on the other desks. Just this one. It's like someone comes here. Jamie kneeled beside the abandoned desk. Something was scratched into the side.
A single word.
Jason. Her heart dropped. That was the boy in the photo. She pulled out her phone and opened the zoomed-in image from the yearbook again. There he was beside Lena, smiling faintly, one hand half raised like he had almost waved before the photo froze him in time. Jason. But there was no student named Jason listed in the 2015 records. No club photos.
No attendance logs.
Nothing. Jamie turned toward the blackboard. Another message had appeared, scrawled hastily in chalk she knew hadn't been there before. I stayed. She didn't have to be alone. Marcus read it aloud, then stepped back, visibly shaken. Okay, no offense, but this is way too much ghost stuff for 1 week. Jamie ignored him. Her mind was racing. Jason had been here. Maybe not alive, but here. And he'd stayed. To wait for Lena? Or to keep her from disappearing entirely?
더 에어 시컨드.
Something stirred near the windows. Jamie turned and saw him. Just for a second. A figure. Tall. Slender.
Teenage.
Dressed in the old Eastbridge hoodie from the 2015 senior line. His eyes were sunken but kind. His presence didn't scream like Lena's had. It lingered. Jason. He raised a hand slowly, then pointed toward the teacher's desk.
제이미 스프린티드 오버.
There was a locked drawer, the kind only teachers could open. She crouched, tugged at the rusted handle. It creaked, then popped. Inside, beneath a pile of yellowed papers and dry pens, lay a spiral notebook. Jamie pulled it out. The front read, Writing prompt. One story you'll never forget. She flipped to the first page. It was Lena's handwriting. March 12th.
He said next to me again.
Jason. I don't think anyone else sees him. But he always knows when I need someone. He listens when I talk about my poems. Today he left a paper rose on my desk. Jamie kept reading. March 14th. Jason said he used to go here.
Before the flood.
Said his locker still remembers him. I didn't know what he meant, but when I passed it, I felt something. Like warmth. March 18th. He's not like other people. He told me he never made it to graduation. That he faded before he got the chance. I asked him if he was a ghost. He smiled and said, maybe. Or maybe I'm just someone the school forgot. Marcus leaned over her shoulder.
아트 더 해.
He was already gone, Jamie whispered. Even back then, he was a ghost. And he found her. When she started to fade, he saw it. Because he'd lived it. A final entry. March 30th. If I disappear, I want someone to remember him too. Jason stayed. For me. Maybe that's what kept me here this long. Jamie looked up. Jason was gone. But a chill lingered in the air. And somehow, she knew he was still listening. They left the room silently. As Jamie turned to close the door, the chain re-wrapped itself across the frame. The lock clicked shut again. When she looked down, the name Lena M. was gone. Scratched clean. The door looked untouched. Like it had never been opened. But Jamie knew the truth. She carried the notebook under her arm as she descended the stairs. The story wasn't over. Because now there were two ghosts. And both deserved to be remembered. That night, Jamie added a new post to the archive. The boy beside her. Jason's story. She included Lena's journal entries, the chalkboard quote, a transcript of the blackboard messages, and a photo she'd taken of the sealed room faint outlines of a figure captured mid-fade. The comments poured in. Alumni started asking about Jason. Some remembered a boy who drowned in the Eastbridge flood years ago, a student who never got to walk at graduation. No one remembered his last name. No photos survived. But there was a whispered legend. A boy who stayed behind. Who helped lost students find their way. Eastbridge had two ghosts. And for the first time, both had names. Possession period. Jamie had stopped dreaming. Ever since the night she found Lena's hidden journal and saw Jason in room 309, her nights were silent, her mind blank when she slept like her dreams had been borrowed for something else. She didn't wake up screaming. She didn't wake up sweating. She just woke, confused and cold, like part of her hadn't returned with her. But it wasn't her she was worried about. It was Katie. Ever since they'd explored room 309, something about Katie had changed. At first, Jamie thought it was just stress. Katie had been distant, more quiet, more tired. She skipped a few study sessions, didn't reply to messages for hours, then came back acting like nothing happened. But then came the handwriting. Jamie found the first note on her locker. A folded slip of lined paper. No name, no date. Just 6 words. You saw her. Now see me.
The handwriting was looping, delicate.
Familiar.
Jamie froze. It matched Lena's. At first, she wondered if someone was messing with her, some other student who'd seen her archive project online and wanted to be part of the story. But when she checked the school surveillance footage through Ms. Parr under the pretense of a vandalism concern, only one person had passed her locker in the last hour. Katie. Jamie tried confronting her that afternoon, as they sat on the grass behind the school building, where few people ever went. Did you write this? She asked, holding up the note. Katie blinked slowly. Her face was pale, eyes ringed with exhaustion. I don't remember, she said quietly. But I've been dreaming of her. Jamie's chest tightened. What kind of dreams? Katie looked at her, and for a moment, her eyes didn't look like her own. She's trying to finish something. Jamie leaned in. Katie, what happened in that room?
Did you feel anything?
Katie blinked again, slower this time, like it took effort. I hear her voice sometimes. It whispers when I'm alone. She's not angry. Not anymore. But she's not finished. Katie looked down at her own hands. Sometimes, they write things when I'm not thinking about it. That night, Jamie got a photo from Marcus. It was of Katie's notebook, her history class journal. The handwriting was Lena's. Page after page of Lena's looping script had taken over the margins, filling them with broken lines of poetry, half-finished thoughts, and fragments of phrases Jamie recognized from Lena's old journal entries. The bell rings, but no one leaves. The locker remembers. So does the water. She never meant to vanish.
마어커스 텍스티드 빌로 더 이미지.
This is not normal. She's not playing around. Jamie didn't sleep that night. By Monday, Katie had stopped coming to school. Marcus said she hadn't been responding to his messages either. Her parents had called the school, saying she was under the weather, but that didn't explain why Jamie received another note, this time slipped under her classroom door. It was folded neatly, like before. Inside, only one sentence. She's not done yet. Jamie stared at it until the bell rang. She went to Katie's house that evening. The blinds were drawn. The porch light flickered. Katie's mother, a thin woman with deep-set eyes and a constantly ringing phone in her hand, looked at Jamie with concern. She hasn't left her room since Saturday, she said. She won't eat. Barely drinks water. I thought maybe it was burnout, but this feels different. Like she's not even in there. Jamie climbed the stairs quietly. Katie's room was dim. The windows were open, even though it was cold. Wind rustled the curtains like ghostly fingers. Katie sat cross-legged on her bed, facing the far wall. Dozens of notebook pages were taped to the surface, overlapping, forming a collage of chaotic thoughts. Jamie stepped in. Katie. No answer. Jamie moved closer. It's me. Katie turned her head. Her expression was blank. Her lips parted, and a voice came out, one that was not hers. You found her. Now she finds you. Jamie froze. Katie's eyes rolled back slightly, just for a moment. Then she collapsed. Jamie caught her before she hit the floor, shaking. Katie? Katie. Her breathing was shallow. Her skin was cold. Jamie pulled out her phone, hands trembling, and called 911. The doctors said it was exhaustion, dehydration, possible dissociation brought on by stress and lack of sleep. But Jamie knew better. She'd seen the notebook pages on Katie's wall. They were messages. Not random. They were directed at Jamie. Later that night, Jamie returned to the archive site. She added a new entry. Possession period, the cost of remembering. She uploaded photos of Katie's journal pages, blocking out personal details but showing enough to prove a pattern. She described the symptoms, the handwriting, the voice, the phrase, "She's not done yet." And then she wrote, "Lena's presence has moved beyond memory. She is trying to finish something and she's using us to do it. But what is it? What didn't get told?"
더 포스트 엔트 라이브 at midnight.
It was viewed 10,000 times before morning. The next day, Jamie found something waiting in her locker. A single object. A key. Attached was a note in Lena's handwriting. Locker 212. She left something there. Jamie knew that row. It was an unused set of lockers in the gym wing. Half were broken or welded shut after an old pipe burst. She pocketed the key and went straight there after school. The hallway was silent. Locker 212 looked like all the others, rusted, dented, paint peeling. She inserted the key and turned. Click. The door opened. Inside was a plastic box, wrapped in a tattered graduation sash. Inside the box, a torn poem titled "For the One Who Listens." A photo of Lena and Jason sitting by the school fountain, smiling. And one VHS tape, labeled in Sharpie, June 3rd, last message. Jamie's hands shook. She took everything home and borrowed Ms. Parra's old VHS player. The tape was static at first. Then it flickered. Lena's face appeared. She was sitting in room 309, backlit by fading daylight. Her hair was loose, and her eyes looked tired, but calm. She began to speak. If someone finds this, you're probably like me. You listen. You see things others miss. Maybe the school still tells you I didn't exist. Maybe my name was erased. But I'm still here. She looked down. I wasn't alone.
제이슨 found me.
He showed me how to stay. A pause. But staying is hard. The longer I remain, the more I forget who I am. My words blur.
My name 필즈 라이거네코.
She looked up at the camera. I wrote a final story. It's hidden. Not in paper. In memory. It's the one they wouldn't let me tell. Then she leaned closer. Please. Finish it. The tape ended. Jamie stared at the black screen for a long time. Lena had tried to tell a final story. One someone had buried deeper than files or photographs. Something stored in memory. Not her own. But someone else's. She returned to the hospital that night. Katie had woken up. She looked weak but alert, her voice raspy. Jamie sat beside her, notebook in hand. Do you remember anything? Jamie asked softly. Katie shook her head. Not much. But I dreamed of water. And stairs. And a locker door slamming shut. Over and over. Jamie nodded. That's where we start, she said. Katie smiled faintly. Then whispered. She's still inside me. Just a little. Watching. Jamie took her hand. Let her watch. We'll finish what she started. And somewhere Jamie didn't know where, or how she swore she heard Lena's voice again. Just one word. Almost. A graduation rehearsal. The auditorium was silent, eerily so. Jamie stood just inside the back doors, her breath shallow, eyes fixed on the empty stage. The evening was late, the school long deserted except for the cleaning crew in the far hallway. Yet here, in this cavernous space usually filled with applause and chatter, something strange was stirring. It began with a low, murmur-soft whispers carried by a draft that shouldn't have been there. Jamie's heart hammered as she pulled her jacket tighter. Her phone's flashlight barely cut through the shadows that pooled beneath the rows of seats. Then, suddenly, the stage lights flickered on. Dim at first, like a failing bulb trying to fight the dark, then gradually brightening until the entire platform glowed with an unnatural pale light. Jamie took a cautious step forward. Figures appeared. Shadowy forms gathered one by one on the stage, like phantoms stepping out of a forgotten dream. Their outlines blurred and flickered, translucent but unmistakably human. The shapes moved with hesitant grace, as if rehearsing a dance or reciting lines learned long ago.
제이미 게스프트 소프트리.
It was a graduation rehearsal. She could see the faded outlines of students in caps and gowns, some standing awkwardly in clusters, others glancing toward the stage's edge. But these were no ordinary students. Their faces were hazy, features indistinct but familiar in a way Jamie couldn't place. From somewhere in the darkness came a voice cold, echoing, and strangely detached. It began announcing names.
세뮤엘 리그즈.
The first figure stepped forward, bowed his head, and slowly took an invisible diploma. Then the voice continued. Marissa Lane.
어너더 피겨로즈. 세이킹 핸즈 위드 서먼 인비저벨. 스마일링 위드 에이 콰이어트 새드니스.
The list went on, name after name whispered across the vast hall, each greeted with the same silent ceremony. Jamie's breath caught when the voice finally said,
리너 M.
The shadows on stage paused, a gentle ripple passing through the figures. One shape stepped forward alone, taller than the others, more defined. Jamie's eyes focused sharply. It was Lena. Her ghostly form looked radiant, her face serene but tinged with a sorrow that cut deep. Her cap was slightly askew, the tassel swaying as if caught in a phantom breeze. She accepted a diploma that wasn't there. The auditorium lights dimmed again, plunging the hall into darkness. Then, a single spotlight shone down on Lena. She turned her head slowly, as if looking right at Jamie. Her lips moved, and Jamie could almost hear the faintest whisper. "Thank you." Then the stage went dark. Silence filled the room once more. Jamie's heart pounded as she stepped forward, but the figures had vanished, disappeared like mist before dawn. She stood alone on the stage, the echo of the ghostly ceremony lingering in her mind. Had it been a memory? A message?
5월의 파이널 고드바이.
Jamie knew one thing for certain. Lena hadn't been forgotten. Not anymore. The next day, Jamie returned to school with a new purpose. She gathered her friends Marcus, Katie, still recovering but determined, and Ms. Parra. Together, they planned a tribute. A real graduation ceremony for Lena and Jason. One that the school had denied them. Posters were made. Invitations sent to alumni, teachers, and current students. Jamie even spoke with the principal, who agreed reluctantly that honoring Lena's memory was long overdue. The night of the ceremony, the auditorium was packed. Soft music played as a slideshow of photos many never before seen flashed on the screen. Lena's face smiled back at everyone, her story finally told aloud. As the program ended, Jamie glanced toward the stage. She swore she saw a shadowy figure in the back row, smiling quietly. A presence no longer lost. A memory finally made whole. The missing diploma. Jamie stood in the dimly lit principal's office, heart pounding in her chest. The old room smelled faintly of polished wood and worn leather, an oddly comforting scent that felt like time itself had seeped into the walls. She glanced around nervously, knowing this was the one place no student had ever been invited after hours. Yet tonight, she had a reason to be here. The school's recent willingness to reopen Lena's story had opened some doors figuratively and literally, but it hadn't yet revealed the whole truth. Lena's graduation, her presence in photos and journals, even the rumors about Jason, all pieces falling into place. But one nagging question remained. Why had Lena never received her diploma? Jamie's curiosity had pulled her here, to the very heart of the school's administration. Ms. Parra had reluctantly given her access to the office earlier that evening, explaining that the principal, Mrs. Carver, was unavailable and had left some files unlocked on her desk. "Just be careful," she warned, "and don't touch anything you don't understand." Jamie nodded, though her hands itched with determination. She scanned the room quickly. The principal's desk was cluttered with stacks of papers, a desktop computer sleeping silently, a few framed photos of smiling students, and a small filing cabinet tucked beneath the edge. She stepped toward the filing cabinet and pulled open the top drawer. Inside were neatly organized folders labeled by year, but one corner of the drawer caught Jamie's eye, a slight irregularity in the wood, a faint outline of a hidden panel. She pressed her fingers along the edge and found it gave way with a soft click. A shallow hidden drawer slid out. Inside lay a single object. A diploma. Its aged paper was yellowed but pristine, wrapped carefully in a thin, translucent plastic sleeve. The gold embossing on the cover caught the light. It read, Eastbridge High School, Diploma of Graduation, Class of 2015.
제이미즈 브레스 히치트.
Carefully, she pulled the diploma free and unfolded it. Her eyes scanned the official script. At the top, Lena Marie Thompson. Beneath her name, the date, May 15, 2015, the very day she had died. Her hands trembled as she turned the diploma over.
No signatures. No seals.
Just a faint watermark and a stamp that looked hastily applied. Jamie's mind raced. This wasn't just a diploma. It was an official record, prepared but never awarded. The office door creaked behind her. Jamie froze. She turned slowly. Mrs. Carver stepped in, her sharp eyes narrowing. "I see you found it," she said quietly. Jamie swallowed hard. Why was Lena's diploma hidden away? Why wasn't she allowed to graduate? The principal's face softened for a moment, then hardened again. Lena's case was complicated. Jamie leaned in.
Complicated how?
Mrs. Carver sighed. After the incident in room 2E, there was a lot of pressure from the board and the family to keep things quiet. Her death was tragic, yes, but it was also disruptive. There were investigations, rumors, and, well, the school wanted to maintain order. Jamie's jaw clenched. So they erased her? Mrs. Carver's eyes flickered with something like regret. It was never meant to be permanent. The diploma was prepared for her posthumously, but awarding it publicly would have opened old wounds, stirred unrest. We were told to keep it out of circulation until the right moment. Jamie stared at the diploma in her hands.
The right moment.
Is that now? The principal hesitated. I suppose with your efforts, and the community's interest reignited, it might be. Jamie nodded firmly. Lena deserves to be remembered, to graduate, to have her name honored like any other student. Mrs. Carver gave a faint smile. Then it seems the right moment has come. That night, Jamie left the principal's office clutching the diploma carefully. She thought about the journey so far. Lena's fading presence, the whispers, the hidden journals, the ghostly appearances, the locked rooms, and the stories resurfacing after years of silence. Now, with the diploma in her hands, the story was finally coming full circle. She walked down the darkened hallways with a new resolve. Lena's graduation ceremony was no longer just a symbol. It was a promise. The following day, Jamie contacted Ms. Parra, Marcus, and Katie. Together, they made plans.
A small gathering.
A private ceremony. To finally award Lena her diploma. Ms. Parra helped arrange the auditorium, a quiet space bathed in warm afternoon light. Jamie printed copies of Lena's story and displayed them on the walls. Katie, now recovering but still fragile, brought a bouquet of white roses, the same kind Jamie had seen mysteriously placed before. Marcus set up a small projector to show photos and memories, including the yearbook spreads and the haunting images from room 309. As the ceremony began, Jamie held the diploma carefully. She spoke softly but clearly.
Today, 이 안어 리너 머리 탐프선.
A student who was forgotten for too long, whose story was silenced, but whose spirit has persevered. Though she could not stand here with us on her graduation day, we stand here for her now. The room was silent but filled with meaning. Jamie handed the diploma to Ms. Parra, who gently laid it on a velvet cushion at the center of the stage. Suddenly, a soft breeze drifted through the open windows. The white roses on the table gently swayed, petals fluttering, and Jamie felt a presence beside her.
A whisper, 배열이 오더배.
Thank you. She looked up, and for a brief moment, she saw Lena's face smiling, radiant, peaceful. The ghostly figure that had haunted the halls was no longer a shadow. She was a light. After the ceremony, news of the event spread quickly. Lena's story became known across the school, the town, and beyond. Students left flowers at the fountain where Lena and Jason had once sat. The yearbook was updated. The school added a memorial plaque near the auditorium entrance, commemorating Lena and Jason, honoring those lost and forgotten. Jamie posted the full story online, crediting everyone who helped bring Lena's memory back to life. Weeks later, Jamie returned to the principal's office, where Mrs. Carver awaited. "I wanted to thank you," Jamie said. "For what?" "For trusting me. For letting Lena's story be told."
MRS 카어버 스마일드 소프트리.
Sometimes, the past must be faced to heal the future. Jamie nodded. As she turned to leave, Mrs. Carver called after her. "Jamie, one last thing." Jamie paused. "There's another folder I never showed you." She reached into a drawer and pulled out a thick manila envelope. On the front was written, "Jason M. Student Records Confidential." Jamie's heart skipped. Jason. Mrs. Carver nodded. He was never officially enrolled. An error, some said. A missing file. But he existed. In every way that mattered.
제이미 스마일드 소프트리.
We'll remember him too. That night, Jamie sat in her room, the diploma resting beside her. She opened her laptop and began typing a new entry for the archive. The diploma that was never given a story of memory, loss, and redemption. She wrote about Lena's hidden diploma, the school silence, and the courage it took to bring a forgotten story into the light. Because sometimes, a piece of paper isn't just a certificate. It's a symbol of justice.
오브 레커그니션.
Of a life that mattered. And for Lena Marie Thompson, that moment had finally come.
더 인버테이션.
It was a plain envelope.
No name on the front.
No stamp. No return address. Just smooth ivory paper, folded crisply, slipped between Jamie's textbooks inside her locker. The kind of envelope you'd miss unless you were paying close attention. She wasn't sure what made her pause that morning, maybe the way her locker had been closed more tightly than she remembered, or maybe it was just the strange silence hanging over the hallway, but when Jamie saw the envelope, her fingers went cold. She pulled it out carefully, heart beating slow and loud. The paper smelled faintly of roses and something older mildew, maybe. Or wet earth. Her name wasn't written anywhere, but she knew it was for her. Inside was a single card. On it, in elegant handwriting that looked too old to belong to any student. "You are cordially invited to the real graduation. Time, midnight. Date, tonight. Location, Eastbridge Cemetery, North Gate. No RSVP. No further details. Just that." Jamie stared at the words, her mind racing. This wasn't a prank. She knew that deep in her bones. The handwriting was Lena's. She'd seen it in journals, in chalk, in Katie's notes. And she knew one other thing. If she didn't go, the story wouldn't be finished. She waited until after dark to tell Marcus. Katie was still too weak to come, and Jamie wouldn't risk dragging her back into the strange in-between world Lena existed in. Not now. Marcus didn't hesitate. "We're going," he said, grabbing his flashlight and old denim jacket. They met at the North Gate just before midnight. The sky was moonless, stars faint behind drifting clouds. The cemetery sat on the outskirts of town, past a line of trees and rusted fencing. The gate creaked open with a soft groan, the hinges protesting after years of neglect. Jamie stepped inside first. The path was lit only by patches of glow from distant street lamps. Crickets chirped somewhere nearby, their sound swallowed by the silence of stone and shadow. They followed the main path deeper into the graveyard. Jamie checked her watch. 11:58 p.m. The invitation hadn't said where in the cemetery. Just North Gate. She turned in a slow circle, searching for any sign. That's when she saw them. Candles. A soft flickering glow, way off the path just behind a tall line of mossy tombstones. Dozens of small flames, dancing gently in the breeze. Marcus saw them too. Should we? He asked. Jamie was already walking. They reached the circle just as the clock struck midnight. Rows of candles lined a clearing in the grass, forming a wide circle around a single old stone bench. The bench had a name carved into it, nearly weathered away.
El Monsieur Thompson.
제이미즈 브레스코트.
This was it. This was Lena's real graduation. And she was the only living person invited.
에이로 험 비겐 소프트. 하어마닉. 라이크 디스턴트 뮤직.
She turned and the clearing was full. Shadowy figures gathered in the candlelight, their outlines glowing faintly. Some wore caps and gowns. Others were dressed in old Eastbridge uniforms or faded hoodies.
고스트.
Not frightening, not malicious, just present, attending. Marcus stepped back, his voice low. Jamie. It's okay, she said. They're not here for us. The crowd parted, and Lena stepped forward. She looked more real than Jamie had ever seen her, solid, grounded, even radiant. Her cap sat straight on her head. Her tassel shimmered faintly in the candlelight. But it wasn't joy on her face. It was peace. Jamie, Lena said, her voice echoing with quiet warmth. You came. Jamie nodded slowly. You invited me. Lena smiled. Because you listened. And remembered. From behind Lena, another figure emerged. Jason. He was taller than Jamie remembered, his smile shy, his presence quiet. He stood beside Lena, taking her hand gently. She gets to walk, he said. This time she walks. Jamie's throat tightened. I brought your diploma, she said, pulling it from her coat. You deserve it. Lena stepped forward and reached out. But instead of taking it, she leaned in and whispered, You give it to me. Jamie blinked. What? Lena's eyes softened. You have to say the words. That's how it ends. Jamie looked around at the crowd. They were waiting. Dozens of ghostly students, glowing gently, eyes all on her. She swallowed, stepping onto the bench. The cold stone chilled her legs through her jeans. She held the diploma up. Her voice trembled, but it was strong. Lena Marie Thompson, she began, on behalf of the class of 2015, and all those who remember your story, your life, and your voiceway honor you tonight. The wind stirred, lifting her hair. Jamie's voice rose. You are seen. You are heard. And you are no longer forgotten. She stepped down and handed the diploma to Lena. Lena took it gently, her fingers brushing Jamie's. And for a moment, she felt warm.
Alive.
The candle flames flared, and the ghosts began to fade. One by one, they smiled, nodded.
베니시트 인투 더 나잇. Like mist lifting from a quiet pond.
Lena lingered a moment longer. Jason beside her. Thank you, she whispered again. Jamie stepped forward. Where will you go? Lena looked skyward. Home. And then they were gone.
더 candles blew out.
The night went silent. Marcus finally spoke. That happened, right? Jamie nodded, tears stinging her eyes. Yes, it happened. They walked out of the cemetery in silence, the invitation still clutched in Jamie's hand. When they reached the gate, she paused and looked back. The clearing was dark now, but the peace she felt wasn't. It followed her. It stayed. The next morning, Eastbridge High buzzed with rumors. Someone had cleaned up the memorial plaque near the auditorium. A fresh bouquet of white roses had appeared beside it, and on the school's main website, a new page had been added in memoriam, class of 2015. It included Lena's photo and Jason's. Jamie had submitted it anonymously. She didn't need credit, because the invitation hadn't been for fame or attention. It had been a final act of closure. Weeks passed. Life returned to normal. Katie healed. Marcus got accepted to a college in New York. Jamie kept the archive site running but stopped checking it every day. Then, on the last day of school, Jamie found something else in her locker.
Another envelope.
Smaller this time. Inside was a photo. It showed Lena and Jason standing in front of the school fountain, holding their diplomas. Smiling. Whole.
Alive.
No note.
No explanation.
Just proof. Proof that somewhere beyond memory, beyond the veil, there had been a graduation. And Jamie had helped make it real. One last photo. It was the end of summer when the second invitation came. No envelope this time. Just a single message typed out on Jamie's phone screen, blinking in the middle of the night. One more memory.
One last photo.
Midnight.
No sender.
No number.
No trace.
Jamie knew exactly who it was from. She didn't question it. Didn't hesitate. She got dressed in her black hoodie, grabbed her flashlight and her fully charged phone, then walked back toward the school. Her feet knew the path by now, the same one she had taken to the cemetery, to the locked rooms, the archive boxes, the stories lost and found.
Eastbridge High stood in silence under a cloudless sky, bathed in silver moonlight.
The building was locked, as it should have been. But the front doors opened with a soft click when Jamie touched the handle. Not a sound came from inside. She stepped into the hallway and instantly felt Ithy were waiting. This wasn't the same charged tension from before. It wasn't heavy with dread or cold with rage. It felt peaceful.
Almost sacred.
Her phone buzzed again.
Gymnasium.
Jamie turned toward the wide double doors at the end of the main hall. As she stepped inside, her breath caught. They were all there. The ghosts.
Lena.
Jason. The other forgotten graduates. The gym was full of them, glowing softly, arranged in rows like a class photo waiting to happen. But they weren't sad anymore. They smiled. Laughed. Some straightened each other's collars. One boy in the front row had his gown backward and was trying to fix it, muttering something Jamie couldn't quite hear. Two girls whispered to each other and giggled like it was the last day of school. And there, in the center, stood Lena. Her blue graduation sash shimmered like morning light on water. Her cap was perched just slightly askew. Her hands were clasped in front of her, fingers interlaced with Jason's. Jamie approached slowly. "You made it," Lena said, her voice echoing just faintly more than the rest. "Wasn't gonna miss it," Jamie whispered. Lena nodded toward her. "Will you take the photo?" Jamie smiled. "Always." She took out her phone and held it up. But just as she aimed the lens, something strange happened. The room shifted. The bleachers reappeared behind them. The banner above the basketball hoop unfurled, Class of 2015 Never Forgotten. The floor glowed faintly under their feet. Time bent, just a little. She saw the students moving into place on their own, lining up in orderly rows. Tallest in the back, teachers in phantom outlines to the sides. Everyone falling into step like this had been rehearsed 1,000 times. Lena and Jason stood at the front. She looked directly into Jamie's camera. "For real this time," she whispered. Jamie raised her phone.
Framed the group.
Her thumb hovered over the shutter. She hesitated, then said aloud, "Okay, 3, 2, 1. Click. The flash exploded in silver light. Jamie blinked. When her vision cleared, the gym was empty. Just like that. Gone. No sound.
No farewell.
Just gone. She stood frozen for a few seconds, then lowered her phone. She quickly pulled up her gallery. The photo was there. She tapped it. The gym was perfectly lit in the frame. The rows of seats behind the shot, the banner still fluttering gently as if caught mid-breeze. But only one person stood in the photo. Jamie. Dead center. Staring at the camera. Her hand still raised in a wave, like she hadn't even realized the shutter had gone off.
No ghosts. No Lina.
No Jason. She was alone. But only mostly, because just to the right of her shoulder, there was something. Not quite a shape. Not quite a blur. More like an impression. A ripple in the air. And in that ripple, faint as breath on glass, were eyes. Eyes that smiled. Jamie zoomed in. Just above her shoulder, the outline of a cap. A faint curl of hair. A whisper of blue. Lina. Smiling. Jamie stared at the photo for a long time. She didn't cry. She didn't speak. She just smiled back. The peace she'd felt earlier returned, settled into her chest like warmth after rain. It was over. Really over. Lina had been seen. She had spoken, laughed, graduated, smiled. And now she was free. So were the others. The next morning, Jamie uploaded the photo to her archive. Title: One Last Photo. Subtitle: What Remains After the Light Fades. She included the story. How they gathered. How they stood in rows. How they smiled. And how, in the final image, she was alone except not. She wrote, "They don't need to be seen to be remembered. They don't need to be visible to be real.
메모리 is stronger than death. And love is stronger than silence."
The post went viral instantly. Some called it the most beautiful ghost story they'd ever read. Others said the photo gave them chills because they could swear they saw more than just Jamie in the frame. Some enhanced it, digitally adjusted the lighting, claiming to see faces behind her. But Jamie didn't confirm or deny. She let the photo speak for itself. Because the truth wasn't about proving ghosts. It was about honoring them. Katie came by that evening. They sat on Jamie's porch, drinking iced tea in silence for a while before Katie finally said, "So that's it?" Jamie nodded. "I think so." Katie looked up at the stars. "Feels like something changed." It did. Jamie turned her phone toward her and opened the photo again. "I think she gave me something. A gift."
어찌됐든.
Jamie looked at her best friend and smiled. The ability to see what most people miss. Katie laughed gently. "You always had that. Not like this." Jamie set the phone down and leaned back. "Now I know what stories are for." Katie tilted her head. "To scare people?" Jamie shook her head. "To save people." Weeks passed. The air turned colder. Leaves began to fall. The town returned to normal mostly. The school year rolled forward. Seniors prepared for exams. Clubs held elections. The fall play went into rehearsal. But if you walked past Jamie's locker, you'd notice something small had changed. A photo was taped inside the door. It showed Jamie standing alone in the gym. But if you looked closely, you'd see her smile wasn't quite alone. And if you looked even closer, You might feel the weight of eyes watching kindly over her shoulder. On the bottom corner of the photo, written in faded black pen, were 3 words. We remember you.